When I decided to marry Sophie Larson and visited her family in Mercer Island to introduce myself, I never expected to be so bluntly rejected. They said coldly, "Don't ever contact us again. We don't want to hear your voice." Perhaps because they were raised in an environment that valued wealth and status, her father, Harold, and her brother-in-law, Nathan, always carried a haughty and unapproachable attitude. They often felt threatened by anyone who possessed what they lacked. Unfortunately, I unwittingly became the target of their simmering envy. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. Sophie's mother and sister didn't object but turned their backs on me alongside them. A few months ago, I pulled off a spectacular retaliation against all four of them. I'm Lucas Bennett, 27 years old. Now I'm living peaceful and happy days in Seattle, surrounded by love, with my wife Sophie, our adorable son, and my mother and brother. It all began 3 years ago when I was 24. Everything was sparked by Sophie, my girlfriend at the time, proposing to me. 3 years ago, I worked at Tech Trend Innovations, a major tech company in Seattle. I graduated from Stanford, a prestigious school, and took pride in rising from a middle-class background in Bellevue. At Tech Trend, I met Sophie Larson on a project developing an AI education app. Sophie, 24, was a gentle, intelligent woman, loved by colleagues. We quickly bonded over a shared love, reading sci-fi novels. After work, we'd sit at a small cafe in Pike Place Market, debating novels or sharing dreams. Sophie said she wanted to start a tech education company to help kids learn more easily. I admired her passion and gradually felt I couldn't live without her. Sophie had a special charm. She was always kind, helping colleagues without expecting anything in return. When I struggled with a project, Sophie stayed late to help, listening to my complaints without a word of protest. She made me feel understood. We started dating after an evening at Lake Union Park, where I invited her for a walk to watch the sunset. Under the golden-orange light, Sophie held my hand, and I knew I'd found someone special. Later dates, dinner in Capitol Hill, movies at a theater near work, only confirmed that Sophie was the one I wanted forever. After over a year of dating, Sophie surprised me with a proposal. It was an evening at a fancy restaurant in downtown Seattle, overlooking Elliott Bay. In the flickering candlelight, Sophie knelt and said, "Lucas, you're the one I want to build a future with. Will you marry me?" I was stunned, my heart racing, but I nodded instantly. I hugged her tightly, amid the applause of nearby diners. That moment felt like a dream, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. The following weekend, we went to my mom's house in Bellevue to share the news. Mom Ellen hugged Sophie, saying, "You're a precious gift to our family." My brother Ryan, a software engineer, teased that I'd hit the jackpot with Sophie. That dinner was filled with laughter, with Mom sharing funny stories from my childhood, delighting Sophie. My family welcomed Sophie like one of their own, and I felt complete. Now, I'm preparing to visit Mercer Island to meet Sophie's family and announce our wedding. Sophie mentioned that her dad, a wealthy real estate tycoon, is tough. I reassured her, saying our love would overcome any challenge. But deep down, I'm nervous, wondering what her family will think of me, a middle-class engineer with a prestigious degree. Having seen how warmly my family embraced Sophie as one of their own, I'm even more hopeful that her family will see the same in me. We're not just bringing good news, we're sharing our desire to build a future together. I know the love we have is strong enough to overcome any obstacle. Still, there's a slight worry, not because I doubt our love, but because I want her family to trust and respect me, as mine has done for her. The night before the visit, Sophie and I sat in my small Capitol Hill apartment, planning the meeting. Sophie seemed tense, unlike her usual self. She held my hand, saying softly but anxiously, "Lucas, I have to warn you. My family, they're a bit odd. Especially Dad and Nathan. They might not be as nice as you think." I laughed, trying to ease her. "Don't worry, babe. I've dealt with tough clients at Tech Trend. I can handle it." But inside, Sophie's warning made me uneasy. How odd could her family be? Would they dislike me because I'm not as wealthy as them? Or because I'm a software engineer, not part of their elite circle, like Harold? I decided to prepare thoroughly to make a good impression. I chose a bottle of fine red wine as a gift, the kind my brother Ryan once called top-notch at a family party. I stood in front of the mirror, practicing my introduction. "Hello, Mr. Harold. I'm Lucas Bennett, working at Tech Trend Innovations. I love Sophie deeply and want to build a future with her." I repeated it, trying to sound natural, not nervous. Sophie watched me, giggling. "You're so cute, Lucas. But don't stress too much. Just be yourself." Her words calmed me, but I couldn't shake the nervous feeling. To prepare further, I asked Sophie about her family. She said Harold is a strict man, proud of his real estate empire. He values status and often judges people by their wealth. Nathan, her brother-in-law, works for Harold, but isn't skilled, often jealous of successful people. Her mom, Margaret, is kinder but usually goes along with Harold. Her sister, Clara, Nathan's wife, is quiet but always backs her husband. Hearing this, I pictured a complex family, far from the warmth of my mom, Ellen, and Ryan. But I told myself, if I'm sincere, they'll understand. Who would reject their daughter's love? I called my mom, Ellen, for advice. With her warm voice, she said, Lucas, just be yourself. If they can't see your worth, it's their loss, not yours. Ryan, eavesdropping, chimed in. Yo, little bro, get ready. I bet your future father-in-law will ask how much you make right at dinner. I laughed, but couldn't deny Ryan might be right. I felt like I was heading into a tough job interview, not a family meeting. The night before the meeting, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. In the quiet darkness, my mind painted vivid scenes, the iron gates swinging open, the Larson family's mansion looming grand and cold. I imagined Sophie's father shaking my hand with a calm but distant demeanor. Nathan, her brother-in-law, watching me with a sharp, scrutinizing gaze, as if judging every move. Margaret and Clara, Sophie's mother and sister, stood by, silent and unreadable. I wasn't sure if I could handle that pressure, but then I thought of Sophie, her eyes, her gentle smile, and the way she squeezed my hand when I was nervous. Just remembering her words, "We'll get through anything together," made me stronger. I knew who I had to be brave for, and what I was willing to fight for. The next morning, the sky was clear, a light breeze rustling the trees, as Sophie and I left Bellevue, heading toward Mercer Island. As our car crossed the bridge over Lake Washington, my heart pounded, not out of fear, but because this was a major milestone in our lives. Sophie sat beside me, quietly gazing at the water, her smile masking a hint of anxiety in her eyes. I squeezed her hand and whispered, "Whatever happens, I'm here with you." She nodded, and in that moment I knew that no matter what, our love was a solid haven. No one could take that away. I'd prepared carefully, picked a top-shelf red wine, rehearsed my introduction to be sincere yet measured. I didn't have their wealth, but I had genuine love and a commitment to make Sophie happy. And that's what I wanted them to see, not with their eyes, but with their hearts. When we arrived, the Larson family's mansion stood before us, a grand building with large glass windows and a perfectly manicured garden. I took a deep breath, telling myself, just be sincere, and it'll be fine. Sophie smiled at me, but her eyes betrayed tension. We stepped inside, and her mom, Margaret, greeted me with a warm hug. "Lucas, so nice to meet you," she said, her voice comforting. But her dad, Harold Larson, only gave a cold nod, shaking my hand with a scrutinizing look. Her brother-in-law, Nathan Carter's sister Clara, stood in the corner, eyeing me with unreadable expressions. The air in the lavish living room suddenly felt stifling. We sat at the dining table, where elegant dishes were set on a white silk tablecloth. I tried to start the conversation by complimenting the house and thanking them for having us. Harold just grunted, and Nathan smirked. Sophie held my hand under the table, as if to bolster my courage. I took a breath, deciding to get to the point. "Sophie and I have some happy news," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We're engaged and planning our wedding." I looked at Sophie, her smile radiant, and for a moment, all my worries melted away. The Larsons clapped, but I noticed Harold and Nathan's smiles seemed forced. Margaret congratulated us, while Clara just nodded slightly. Then Harold spoke, his voice low but sharp. "Engaged, huh? So what do you do to support my daughter?" "Lucas," I smiled, staying polite. "I'm a software engineer at Tech Trend Innovations, a major tech company in Seattle. I graduated from Stanford, and am working hard to build my career." I thought sharing my achievements would earn their respect, but I was wrong. Harold raised an eyebrow, chuckling dryly. "Stanford? Tech? Sounds flashy, but do you know what real business is? Like my real estate company, for instance." Nathan jumped in, sneering. "Yeah, you think that fancy degree makes you better than us? We're not impressed by book smarts around here." I was stunned, not expecting such open insults. Sophie gripped my hand, her voice trembling. "Dad, Nathan, Lucas is amazing. He works hard and loves me." But Harold ignored her. Turning to me, "You think you're good enough for Sophie, a middle-class kid, with nothing but a piece of paper?" I felt my blood boil, but I stayed calm. "I respect your family, sir," I replied, my voice firmer than I expected. "But I love Sophie, and I'll do anything to make her happy. Harold scoffed, and Nathan shook his head, like I'd said something absurd. Margaret tried to mediate, saying, "Come on, everyone. It's a happy day." But the tension lingered. Clara barely spoke, just staring at me coldly. I realized they didn't just dislike me. They were jealous, envious of my education and success, things they didn't have. The dinner dragged on like a nightmare. Every word I said was twisted by Harold or Nathan into a chance to mock me. They asked about my family, and when I said my mom was a retired teacher, Nathan laughed loudly. "Oh, a teacher? Probably dirt poor, huh?" I wanted to fire back, but Sophie squeezed my hand, signaling me to hold back. I gritted my teeth, enduring for her sake. When dinner ended, I felt like I'd survived an interrogation. I handed the wine to Margaret, but Harold didn't even glance at it, just said, "Leave it there." As we left the mansion, I felt a deep hurt. Sophie hugged me in the car, apologizing repeatedly. "Lucas, I didn't expect them to be like that. You don't deserve this." I forced a smile, saying, "It's okay, babe. I won't let this get to us." But inside, a heavy weight pressed on my chest. The meeting I'd hoped would be a bonding moment left me feeling like an outsider. I couldn't stop wondering, would I ever be enough in their eyes, or would I always be just an outsider? Though that night in Mercer Island still haunted me with its cold words and scornful looks, I clung to what warmed my heart. Sophie's worried gaze as we left the mansion, her trembling hand in the car, and her promise that we'd get through anything together. I poured my focus into our future, into the wedding we both dreamed of. With my mom's support, Ryan's encouragement, and my faith in our love, I still held hope that one day, the Larsons would see the real me. But at that moment, I couldn't have guessed, the worst was yet to come. We chose a luxurious hotel in downtown Seattle for the wedding venue. It was a stunning space with large windows overlooking Elliott Bay, where light sparkled on the water. We spent weeks preparing, picking flowers, the menu, and writing vows. I personally designed the invitations, sending special ones to the Larsons, hoping they'd come. Sophie was anxious, saying, "Lucas, I'm not sure Dad will show up. He's so stubborn." I held her hand, replying, "I believe they'll come, babe. After all, it's their daughter's big day." But deep down, I wasn't sure if I was comforting Sophie or myself. The night before the wedding, I was checking the guest list when my phone rang. It was Harold. His voice was cold over the speaker. "Lucas, I'm afraid our family can't make the wedding. We booked a trip to Hawaii early. I'm sure you understand." I was shocked, unable to believe my ears. "But Mr. Harold, this is Sophie's wedding," I stammered. He cut me off. "Don't bother us. Have fun." The call ended, leaving me dazed. Sophie walked in, saw my face, and asked, "What's wrong, honey?" When I told her, she covered her face, tears streaming down. "I'm so sorry, Lucas. I didn't think they'd do this." I hugged her, keeping my voice steady. "It's okay, babe. We'll still have an amazing day." But inside, I felt a deep wound. The wedding day arrived, and I stood before the mirror in my suit, forcing a smile to hide the pain. The hotel was filled with flowers and light, soft music playing. I kept glancing at the door, hoping for a miracle to bring the Larsons. But as the ceremony began, only Margaret arrived, 15 minutes late, with an apologetic look. "Lucas, Sophie, I'm sorry about Harold, and the others," she whispered. I nodded, but my heart sank. The chairs meant for Sophie's family sat empty, a bitter reminder of their rejection. As the guests, friends, tech trend colleagues, and my family started whispering, I felt humiliated. They glanced at the empty chairs, then at me with pitying eyes. I wondered, what did I do wrong? Why do Sophie's family hate me so much? Sophie, in her pristine white dress, held my hand tighter, as if saying she didn't care about their absence. But I knew she was hurting too. During the vows, I looked into her eyes and said, "I promise to love and protect you, no matter what happens." I didn't mention her family, as even thinking of them made my throat tighten. The ceremony went smoothly, but the Larsons' absence cast a dark cloud over the joy. Friends and colleagues clapped, congratulating us, but I overheard whispers. "Where's the bride's family? They really didn't show up?" My mom Ellen hugged me after, saying, "Son, you don't need them. You have Sophie and us." Ryan, with his usual teasing, added, "Don't sweat it, bro. The wedding's still awesome." But despite my family's efforts to cheer me up, I felt an unfillable void. After the wedding, Sophie and I held a small party at Mom's house in Bellevue to lift our spirits. Only our closest circle was there. Mom, Ryan, a few tech trend friends, and Margaret, who stayed to apologize again. "Lucas, I don't know what Harold's thinking. she said, eyes tear. But I'm proud of you, and Sophie. I thanked her. But her words didn't ease the pain. As the party ended, Sophie and I sat on the couch, holding each other in silence. She whispered, "You don't deserve this treatment. I love you, Lucas." I kissed her forehead, replying, "I love you too. We'll get through this." That night, I lay awake, unable to sleep. I kept thinking about the empty chairs at the wedding, where her dad, sister, and brother-in-law should have been. They chose a Hawaii trip over their daughter's wedding, and I knew it wasn't a coincidence. It was a cold statement that I didn't belong in their family. Sophie slept peacefully beside me, her breathing soft, but I knew she was hurting too. I wondered if I could keep enduring their contempt, if our love was strong enough to withstand their ongoing rejection. But then I squeezed her hand, telling myself, no matter what, I'll protect this happiness. A few weeks after the wedding, Sophie begged me to visit Mercer Island, to share the news with her family. She hoped they'd regret missing the big day and change their attitude. I reluctantly agreed, not wanting to upset her. We drove to the Larsons' mansion, and I tried to keep a neutral face, though the bitterness from our last visit lingered. When we walked in, Margaret hugged Sophie, saying, "I'm glad you're happy." But Harold and Nathan stood in the corner, their eyes icy. Clara, Sophie's sister, just nodded at me, silent. I sat down, trying to be polite. Sophie held my hand, starting, "We got married, and everything's wonderful. I wanted you to know." I waited for an apology, or at least congratulations, but Harold just snorted. "Married," he said, sneering. "He ruined your big day, Sophie. A middle-class guy like him doesn't deserve you." Nathan chimed in, smirking. "Yeah, who do you think you are, Lucas? You don't belong in this family." I was stunned, unable to believe they'd say that in front of Sophie. She shouted, "Dad, Nathan, stop it. Lucas is my husband." But Harold ignored her. Turning to me, "You should apologize for dragging Sophie down to your level." My blood boiled, but I held back for Sophie's sake. I replied, voice firm, "I have nothing to apologize for. I love Sophie, and she chose me." Harold shook his head, as if I'd said something ridiculous. As we prepared to leave, I left my shoes in the hallway to put on sneakers. When I slipped them on, I felt something wet. I checked and found black ink oozing inside. The chemical smell made me cough. I looked at Nathan, catching his sly grin. "Watch your step, buddy," he said, his tone dripping with malice. I knew he did it. Sophie, furious, yelled, "Nathan, what did you do?" He just shrugged, feigning innocence. Driving back to Capitol Hill, my hands shook with anger. A few days later, my feet broke out in red, itchy rashes. I had to take time off from Tech Trend to see a doctor, who confirmed I was allergic to the ink's chemicals. I lay in bed, in pain, and humiliated. Sophie cared for me, tears streaming. "Lucas, I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this." I hugged her, saying, "It's not your fault. I won't let them hurt us anymore." But inside, a fire of rage burned. A few months later, Sophie was hospitalized for exhaustion from overworking at Tech Trend on a major project. I was so worried, I couldn't sleep. I called Harold, hoping he'd care about his daughter. But when I said Sophie was in the hospital, he scoffed. "Exhaustion? That's trivial. Don't bother me, Lucas." I was shocked, pleading, "Mr. Harold, she's your daughter." He cut me off, voice icy. "What do you want me to do?" "Stop calling." I tried Nathan, but he was worse, insulting me. "You're a loser, Lucas. Sophie's like this because of you. Get lost." The call ended, and I sat by Sophie's hospital bed, feeling an unprecedented fury. I watched Sophie in her hospital bed, her face pale, but still smiling at me. I held her hand, vowing not to let her family hurt us anymore. When she woke, I told her about the calls with Harold and Nathan. Her eyes teared up, but she said firmly, "Lucas, I don't need them anymore. I just need you." I nodded, feeling a new resolve. "We'll cut them off," I said. "They don't deserve to be your family." Sophie hugged me, and we swore to build a future without the Larsons' shadow. I called my brother Ryan to vent. He listened, then said, "Lucas, you don't need those people. Prove them wrong by living happily." Ryan's words fueled me. I knew the Larsons wouldn't stop, but I was ready to face them. We decided to leave Tech Trend Innovations to pursue Sophie's startup dream. We founded an ed tech company in Capitol Hill called Bright Path Learning. Sophie's idea was an online platform to help kids in remote areas access quality courses, and I brought it to life with my coding skills. The early days were tough. We worked late nights in our small apartment, fixing bugs, designing interfaces, and pitching to investors. But Sophie was my rock. She smiled even when exhausted, saying, "Lucas, we're doing something meaningful. Thank you for believing in me." I kissed her forehead, replying, "I'm the one who should thank you for giving me a purpose worth living for." The company grew steadily. We secured our first investment from a Seattle startup fund, and BrightPath began attracting thousands of users. I was proud seeing kids in far-off towns use our app to learn math and science. Sophie got thank you emails from parents, and each time she read them aloud, my eyes welled up. Despite an economic downturn hitting many businesses, we kept growing through hard work and faith in each other. I felt I was living not just Sophie's dream but mine too. Amid the busy days, Sophie and I welcomed our greatest joy. Our son Ethan was born. Seeing him with Sophie's big round eyes, my heart melted. I held Ethan in the hospital, whispering, "You're our greatest treasure." Sophie, tired from labor, still smiled. "We're a family, Lucas." That's enough. Those moments erased all the pain the Larsons caused. We didn't tell them about Ethan, and I didn't want them to know. Harold, Nathan, Clara, even Margaret. They didn't deserve to be part of our son's life. My family in Bellevue became our rock. Mom Ellen often visited Capitol Hill, bringing homemade meals and helping with Ethan. She'd hold him, singing lullabies in her warm voice, reminding me of my childhood. Ryan, my brother, stopped by too, joking that Ethan would be a coding prodigy like Dad. Weekend evenings, we gathered at Mom's, laughing and swapping stories. I was grateful for a family that always had our backs, unlike the Larsons' coldness. Watching Ethan sleep in Sophie's arms, I knew we'd made the right choice, cutting them off. Despite work and family life, Sophie and I made time for each other. We'd take Ethan for walks in Discovery Park, where trails wound through forests and beaches. Sophie pushed the stroller, and I shared new ideas for BrightPath. Once she held my hand, saying, "Lucas, do you know how happy I am? Even without my family, I have you and Ethan." I hugged her, feeling a peace I'd never known. The Larsons were now a faint memory, powerless to hurt us. Life in Capitol Hill grew fully. BrightPath learning thrived. Ethan grew strong, and my Bellevue family was our anchor. I thought the Larsons, Harold, Nathan, Claire, even Margaret, were gone for good after we cut contact. Their wounds from insults, the ink in my shoes, to their indifference, when Sophie was hospitalized, lingered. But I tried not to let them taint our happiness. Yet I didn't expect them to come back, giving me a chance to make them pay for their cruelty. One afternoon, while working at BrightPath's office, my phone rang. It was Harold. His voice lacked its old arrogance, replaced by desperation. "Lucas, I need your help. My real estate company is going bankrupt. Can you invest to save us?" I was stunned, unable to believe he'd call after everything. I replied coldly, "Mr. Harold, remember when you called Sophie's illness trivial, or when you said I wasn't good enough for her?" He stammered, "Lucas, that was a misunderstanding. We need you now." I smirked. "Misunderstanding? You and Nathan know what you did to my shoes in Mercer Island. Don't call again." I hung up, feeling a cold satisfaction. Days later, Nathan texted, begging, "Lucas, please. The company's all we have. You can't abandon Sophie's family." I read it, recalling his smug grin as he poured ink in my shoes and his insult. "You're a loser." I didn't reply, just deleted the message. Sophie, learning of this, backed my choice. She said, "You owe them nothing, Lucas. They chose how to treat us." Her words confirmed I'd done right, but I didn't stop at refusing. At Tech Trend, I'd heard rumors that Harold cheated in real estate deals, bending laws for profit. With Ryan's help, I gathered evidence from public records and contacted a reporter at a reputable Seattle paper. I sent them emails and contracts, proving Harold inflated property values to evade taxes. Weeks later, a bombshell article hit. Larson real estate empire collapses amid fraud scandal. It rocked the city, and Harold's company went under. The Larsons fell into ruin. They sold their Mercer Island mansion, moving to a small Tacoma apartment. Harold lost his status, no longer invited to elite events. Nathan, reliant on Harold's firm, took a part-time job at a convenience store. Clara and Margaret tried contacting Sophie, pleading for forgiveness, but she refused. "They're not my family anymore," Sophie told me, eyes teary but resolute. I hugged her, relieved that the Larsons finally paid for their actions. I didn't brag but shared the story with Mom Ellen and Ryan. Mom hugged me, saying, "You did right, Lucas. They didn't deserve your kindness." Ryan, with a sly grin, added, "Man, you sure know how to hit back." I laughed, but inside I felt no joy. Revenge didn't bring happiness, only release. After the Larsons' downfall, Sophie and I continued our happy life. Our company, Bright Path Learning, became a leading ed tech firm in Seattle, providing learning opportunities to thousands of kids. Our son, now starting to babble, brought endless joy every day. The Larsons, Harold, Nathan, Clara, and Margaret, were no longer part of our lives. I didn't contact them, and Sophie didn't want to mention them. Their wounds had healed, leaving me with a valuable lesson about self-worth. Mom Ellen and brother Ryan remained our rock. Mom often visited, playing with Ethan and sharing stories from her youth, making Sophie laugh. Ryan, the fun uncle, brought toys, joking that Ethan would soon code like Dad. Gatherings at Mom's in Bellevue were filled with laughter, and I was grateful for a family that loved us. They proved real family doesn't need fame or wealth, just love and sincerity. One afternoon, I took Sophie and Ethan for a walk in Discovery Park. Sophie pushed the stroller and I held her hand, enjoying the cool sea breeze. Watching Ethan giggle in his stroller, I reflected on my journey. Harold's insults, Nathan's malice, and the Larsons' rejection once made me question my worth for Sophie. But Mom Ellen was right. If they can't see your value, it's their loss. I overcame their envy by staying true to myself, and now, I had a loving family. I turned to Sophie, saying, "I'll teach Ethan about self-respect, so he knows no one can put him down." She smiled, replying, "And I'll teach him about love, like you've loved me." We hugged and I felt a deep peace. The Larsons were just a memory, and our future shone brighter than ever. I vowed that no matter life's challenges, I'd always protect Sophie and Ethan, as they gave me a reason to keep going. The story of Lucas Bennett in Banned by FIL skipped a big event. The reaction, priceless, reflects social and family challenges many face in the U.S. today, especially amid class divides, envy, and family expectations. Set in Seattle, Washington, a modern tech hub, it portrays the conflict between Lucas, a middle-class software engineer, and Sophie's elite family, particularly Harold and Nathan, who envy his education and success. Their rejection, from insulting Lucas in Mercer Island, skipping the wedding, to malicious acts like pouring ink in his shoes, mirrors a real U.S. issue: class bias and judgment based on background. In American culture, where individual value is often championed, the Larsons' behavior shows some still judge others by wealth and status, like Harold mocking Lucas as a middle-class kid. Yet, Lucas prevails by focusing on his love for Sophie, launching Bright Path Learning, and building a happy family with their son, Ethan, embodying the resilience and independence core to modern American values. Lesson learned: cherish your self-worth, and don't let others' biases define you. In today's U.S., you may encounter people like Harold, judging you by background rather than achievements, as he scorned Lucas's Stanford degree. Instead of letting insults like Nathan's, "You're not good enough," shake you, learn from Lucas. Focus on your goals, like he built Bright Path, and lean on those who love you, like Mom Ellen and Ryan. When facing envy, like the ink in the shoes, hold on to your dignity, cut off toxic ties, as Lucas did with the Larsons, and prove your worth through actions, like the article exposing Harold's fraud. Finally, like Lucas in Discovery Park, find joy in family and community. They're the foundation to overcome challenges in America's diverse society. Please subscribe to follow Lucas and Sophie's journey, discovering how they overcame obstacles and built happiness in Seattle. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with more inspiring stories.